Welcome, Champlain College Wave Riders, to the Wave Podcast. My name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and I am here with Dr. Tom Myers to have a part 3 chat on spirituality, meaning, and purpose with a splash of synchronicity. We are today going to talk about reframing the stories we tell ourselves. So welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Kim. Great to be here again.
Oh, it's just so good. This is actually, Tom and I love talking about all things synchronicity. And how about we start out with maybe giving our listeners sort of an idea of what we mean when we're talking about the stories we tell about ourselves, and so it's like old stories, new stories about other people, and how we reframe those.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. Well, and this is part of a series. If you've listened to it before, it's a 4-part series, maybe more, but I think at least 4 right now. And as you said in the intro, Kim, about spirituality, meaning, and purpose, and how the level of spirituality and understanding in a power in the universe greater than yourself, however you define that. And it's a 4-part series that we're talking about, one, the transcendence, the idea, first part, about transcendence and spirituality. Second, we talked about belonging and being part of a community, as we as social animals, as human beings, and need to be in part with community. The third part, of which we're going to talk about today, is the storytelling. And storytelling, the stories we tell about ourselves and about others, and how we can frame and reframe a situation in our lives or parts of our lives, of how that can then affect our emotional, physical, and spiritual sense. And then lastly, we'll talk about purpose and having that sense of purpose in one's life, and what creates meaning and what creates that level of excitement and energy that gets you up in the morning. So we'll get to that one next, but right now we're going to be talking about, as you said, storytelling.
Okay, so I think we can just maybe sort of have a chat with the listeners about what we mean by that. So I know with my cognitive psychology filter, Tom, right away it takes me to the default network of the brain. When we're kind of on autopilot, zoning out, not really having a lot of conscious train of thought, whether we're in the car driving or maybe in the shower, those places tend to open the door for all that kind of more intrusive thinking and ruminating and perseverating on things. And often that old story creeps in when we're in those situations, kind of on that different level of consciousness, like in the shower or whatever. So can you tell us what the impact is with running those old narratives through the mind?
Yeah, and you might think, oh, it's all on my emotional outlook and how I'm going to, ruminate, as you said, ruminate or perseverate over a situation. And let's go back to like the beginning, the dawn of human beings, is that it is ingrained in us in us for survival, to be thinking about, looking at, and having this kind of receptive view of what happens if things go bad. How am I going to survive? We're kind of it's our survival default. And so then that puts you, obviously you've heard this many times before, but into that flight or fight state, right? And what does that do to the nervous system, and heighten stress levels and the cortisol and all these different things? So a situation, and we'll play this out, we'll have some situational role plays here, but a situation where it looks like it could be a negative, something that will negatively impact you. How does that put you into a physiological state of stress? And again, innately, we're kind of designed for survival and designed to be looking for danger. Is it imminent danger that will harm us, or if we are wronged by a person, someone says the wrong thing? Example, okay?
I just can't help it. Tell me if I'm okay. So basically, we're saying like that. This is the limbic system we're talking about, right? The fight or flight. So back in the Paleolithic day, so the pterodactyl was like circling, ready to snatch us. So that's the same response as, you're sitting on the couch in your dorm and like somebody didn't answer a text, but it's all the talk to me here.
Yeah. So you can look at that text, and it could mean like the way it's framed. Is it all caps or is it no caps or anything?
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point. And you might look at it first blush as like, oh, why did they send that to me? You're looking at it in a negative light.
Totally.
Right? What does it do to your body? Again, the limbic system and the stress and the cortisol and all the secretion of these different hormones that create this fight or flight state. And you get up in arms and you get, and so as they say, you get an email or you get a text, rather than react immediately, give it an hour, give it 2 hours, give it a day, 24 hours.
Even 60 seconds is better than
60,
a straight shoot, right?
And then, and so you can look at it as, okay, this is going to make me angry, and I'm going to respond, right? So then that starts to incite a whole, text chain of an argument or going back and forth of this vitreous, commentary. But then you look at it, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I'm taking this the wrong way. That's not what they mean. They mean something totally different. Oh, it's totally innocent, an innocuous text.
Right,
oh,
but there's
now
a narrative there.
But I thought I took it, so I reframed this in a way, and I framed it in a way that is an accusation and is costing me.
Oh, they don't like me.
Right.
Or they don't answer the phone. I love this one. They don't answer the text right away, so they're breaking up with me. Yeah. It's not my phone's dead or I'm getting a root canal. It's they're breaking up. There's a narrative.
So you can go down that pathway, right? That
yes.
That narrative that we're creating. Oh, we're creating a whole chain of story.
Like
oh my
a
God,
story.
They're going to break up with me. This is what they mean. They found someone else. They're going to, all these different things. And like, wait a minute, it's not. It's just responding so it's interesting how our brain can work and how it can fill in the spaces that and fill in the words and spaces that really aren't there. So as we go through life, we as humans and in life, things happen, and we have situations that come at us. Can we look at it in a negative light or a positive light? And what we're talking about today is like, how do we reframe that? How do we back up? How do we reframe this situation? What is the context of what is said? What's its context? And the timing.
So tell me, Tom, because we do some of this stuff in Minecraft, and I also am a big fan of skills. I mean, talents are great too. We don't want to throw out Mozart or anything. I like skills because we can learn them. We can emulate somebody who's maybe a little farther down the path. So this, to me, seems like it lands in the skill set area. Like students and everybody listening can learn how to reframe better for a better positive outlook each day, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So how am I? Why don't we take maybe we can think of like an example in a college example, like how you can consciously choose to step back. I think we're talking about fact checking a little bit too, right? Like here's this story, but it's like believing, just blindly believing it.
Yeah.
So what can students or anyone else listening? How might they start if they're not really there right now and they want to be there to have a more positive day in life? How might they start learning how to reframe?
Yeah, so let's take an example. You and I are both professors and taught for many years in the classroom. And I think here's a we'll take real life examples. So we're handing back exams, okay? And one student may get, a pretty poor grade, a D. So let's say at face value, the student can take that exam and just walk away and just be pretty upset and think, how am I going to stay in college? How am I going to, I'm so dumb, I can't
like
get
0 to 100.
Yeah, 0 to 100, you go,
right.
And I'm going to flunk out. And now my parents or the folks who are paying for this, all the loans I've taken out, all this stuff, I'm just going to be a failure, right? So from getting a D on a grade, on a test, to go to, point Z at
and
the
now
end
I'm failing at life.
Yeah,
and,
failing at everything. Okay, so you're taking like one situation, you're expounding that into your whole life. It's affecting everything. A D on a paper now is going to be, a life of ruin.
The Achilles, it's over.
Right.
Right.
I'm done, right?
Right.
So you can see how that can cascade and become a snowball effect to affect everything, not just academically, but everything. So how might you reframe that? Let's play it out. Okay, so I just gave you, Kim, a D on your first paper. You've worked so hard on this exam or this paper. So if you were going to reframe it, like what would you do? How would you kind of talk yourself through it? And then what actions could you take?
How would I talk myself through it? That if I honestly put in the effort, that's the key. Because for me, the intention would matter. Because if I waited to the last minute or something, then I'd be like, well, learn that one. I can't blame the professor or blame anybody because I just, I waited to the last minute. Or if there was a legit reason to wait at the last minute, like there isn't really one. So let's say forget that.
But you answer like perfect. Like, yeah, I waited the last minute. Next time.
And if I really get, because I actually had this happen to a friend in college. The Shakespeare teacher was just wonderfully demanding, but just really, really good.
Rigorous, yeah.
Yeah, just rigorous. Everybody wanted to take classes with him. He wasn't like a jerk or anything. And I would look at it, I think, if it was that situation and I really busted my tail to get the D or C, I'd be like, you know what? Wow. It's a tough sell to students in college, maybe in retrospect. I'd be like, I don't know what I would have done differently. I killed myself for this D. Actually, that happened to me in physiology, and I love that professor. But I learned so much. Like, I actually learned so much from the studying.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, one way, like, yeah, I probably deserve it because I didn't put any time into it. I didn't study.
Got 3 feet of powder. I went skiing.
Yeah, right. I had more other priorities that took place. So then, again, from a healthy reframing, like, yep, I learned from it. I learned that I didn't put the time into it. Going forward, I need to put time into it. Now I know what the professor is asking for. And I will be better able to address it and get a better grade the next time. But this time I didn't do it because I'm taking it upon myself. Again, the stories you tell yourself, your accountability, your responsibility, I didn't do it. Let's take the second scenario where you did work hard. You really worked hard on this exam. You studied all night and you really thought you were going to ace it.
And then you didn't.
And you didn't.
And it doesn't mean we're not being, like, that we wouldn't be disappointed. Like, that's just, we can feel disappointed, right? But
you didn't get the grade that you expected. So this is just from personal experience. You can see the students all leaving class, and then there's a student who lingers, like knowing that they want to talk to you, right?
Absolutely.
And it's that student who comes up and says, Dr. Myers, I really worked hard on this. Can you tell me? Here's a really healthy way to frame this going forward. It's like, what can I do? I know I can't. Let's say it's a paper. Okay. Is there a possibility I can rewrite this and resubmit it? And if we know as professors, no, this student's going to go above and beyond and work hard to rewrite this, and it wasn't something, like I said earlier, it wasn't something you just threw together in half an hour. Right. So reframing it to the point where, and as a professor, it's like, well, here's a student who really really worked hard on this. I can see, the authenticity and the sincerity of this student to really want to learn and do, to rewrite this. Certainly, it's like, yeah, I'll give you a few more days, rewrite that. Let's see how that looks coming back. So you've gone from a dire situation of a really poor grade to like, now I'm a little bit more empowered.
Right.
The professor's going to allow me to rewrite this. I'm going to learn a lot from this rewrite. Or the professor may say, let's better luck next time. Like, I have to accept this grade. It's not fair for other students.
Right. That resubmit
but
things.
Going forward, this is what, Kim, this is what I would like to see you do in terms of your writing, in terms of depth of research and going. So now you're empowered. Like, yeah, I learned from this one. Going forward, reframing the story about ourselves.
Reframing the story.
That this is how I'm going to do. That's an academic example.
It's an academic example, and I also like, Tom. I like the thread, because even with that was a different example with the cell phone situation. With when, oh, they didn't text me back, because it relates to the academic, because it, like you said, the brain naturally wants to fill in the gaps. So it can't be that, my brand new partner of a week is having a root canal. It has to be they're breaking up with me. So the fact checking thing, I think, is so important, because we can easily slide into that kind of panic state or fearful state, or whatever. That's kind of synonymous, I guess. Whatever negative state, without questioning where are those feelings, where are those thoughts coming from. The only thing we have to work with right now is I didn't get a text back.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think it's having a broader view of the situation. Did you know that they're going for a root canal? Maybe they didn't tell you that they're going to be out the next week, and they're going to, or they're having their tonsils out or wisdom teeth out or whatever.
Or their phone fell in Lake Champlain.
Right. Yeah. And so it's is another introduction of the concept of empathy, to understand that you can't just take it at face value.
All the time.
That you have to be being empathetic and understanding of what another person is going through, and we don't know what other people's lives and what people are facing at that one time, what's happening with this person in their personal life. And there could be a whole litany of crap that they're going through.
Right.
They haven't disclosed it to you, but there's a lot
like
more.
Snark.
There's a lot more going
through. Drop the fork and right?
Yeah, right.
So I have a question.
So it's understanding, I guess, a broader view of I think people are trying the best and doing the best they can.
Every day in every way.
Every way, right. And so having that empathy and a little bit of grace to say, there's a lot more, people are facing a lot more going on than I know about. And so give them the space and the grace for that.
Well, I totally agree with that, 100%. I have a question too, Tom. So we gave the example with the academic example and the all too common cell phone. My students talk about this, like the exclamation, like you said, the all caps and all these things. What about as far as the narratives we tell ourselves, not just for students, we have listeners also who are seasoned. We're not going to say old, because seasoned is such a much nicer word, but it works for all age groups, really. What about narratives, stories we tell about ourselves kind of in general? You know how we sometimes think, oh, I sucked at math in the second grade. I guess that's like an example too. But you know how we just have stories that, how come I always do this, or I'm never going to have a partner because I always do that. Just these stories that we carry with us that usually aren't positive. Yeah. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Just you said a couple of things that really, me always, so it's reminded of the work that Martin Seligman did. Seligman in his book Learned Optimism.
I love him.
And he talks about the 3 P's of pessimism.
Oh yeah, I got it.
And you hit them already, but again, the 3 P's of personal, pervasive,
and permanent. And permanent.
Right?
I always. Yeah. I'm going to always suck at math.
I suck at math. Why am I the only one who can't do this, calculation? Why is it always me? I'm never going for. I'm permanent. I'm never gonna.
I don't even use those
this.
Words in my vocabulary.
Right? Okay, so we can, as part of this, fight or flight response and stress. When we're stressed, we can go into the situation of these 3 P's. Why is it? Why does this happen? Why is it me? Why is it always me? Have
you ever heard Loretta LaRoche?
I think so.
It just made me think of her because she does a thing on the 3 P's, and she's a comedian. Actually, I think she just barely passed. She's like 90, but it's on topics like this. But she does a thing with the pessimist, and she's imitating the pessimist.
Oh, I think you mentioned it.
How come it's always it always rains on my day off? How come it always rains on my day off? And Loretta has this like Brooklyn accent. She goes, "Oh, so the clouds have a conspiracy? They're all against you. Get an umbrella."
And we kind of go down that road. It's like, God, is there a conspiracy against me? What?
Oh my God!
And you have those days where just one thing after another. You're late for work and you get a flat tire, and then cascades. So I guess back to how we healthy reframe. How would you say? Okay, it always rains on my day off, right?
With the permanent words.
Yeah. Always,
never,
again,
no
right,
one.
The extremes, right? So then, let's for healthy reframing, and it's your day off and it's raining, how would you, Kim Quinn, how would you look at that?
I would look at that and
To reframe it.
Especially if I had the house to myself. I'd be doing a happy dance in the middle of the living room with a cup of hot tea, a book, the golden retriever, and I would just do everything I want to do. It's so contemplative, and I love to write. I would look at that because it's hard for me to write when it's a sunny bluebird outside, and I would just take the advantage to do that, one of the simple pleasures I love the most, which is just bunkering and write and read and things like that. I would be quite over the top, actually.
Yeah, I guess it could be different extremes of how much you were looking for your day off and going to the beach on that sunny day.
Right.
But
Gotta be able to pivot,
a healthy
though.
pivot, right? Okay, well, I'm not going to go to the beach today, but this is going to give me a great chance to
Or get caught up.
get caught up.
Clean a closet.
I was going to go food shopping anyway. I was going to make an amazing meal. So you could. It's
Right.
you're always giving these choices, and you can look at them as a negative or positive. How do you pivot, as you said, into a positive.
Right, because the beach thing
framework.
or skiing on a bluebird day, if that were your only day off, I might not arrive there in the first 10 seconds, but I would get there pretty quickly. You know how much I love to ski and I love the beach. You can't control the weather. There's not a whole lot of point wasting life minutes going down with the ship. It doesn't make any sense. So I'd rather, in fact, I think you know this too, because I love John Kabat-Zinn. I'm pretty sure it's him. His definition of stress is wanting the present moment to be something other than it is. So if you're getting all stressed out about the rain, it's not the rain that's causing you stress. It's everything you wish you were doing that day that isn't how your day's unfolding, right? So the stress has nothing to do with the rain.
Yeah.
It has to do with your thinking
Right.
about the
Yeah.
rain.
Yeah. Regardless, the environment and the plants and the trees and grass, it needs the rain. So there's a positive framework to say, hey, this is a.
And it's so peaceful.
Yeah.
When it lands, especially at night. So.
And I think going to the point of, from the spiritual piece that we're going to talk a little bit about, it's like, well, this is what's meant to be today.
Right.
This is what I'm supposed to do.
This is how it's unfolding.
This is how it's unfolding. There's a reason why, I'm not going to the beach because of the rain. There's something else that again, reframing is something better for me.
Yeah, it can be a tough sell in the moment.
Oh, absolutely.
But when you look
very
back,
disappointed. But then you might say, well, who knows what might unfold in the very near future.
And in the day. Like maybe your best friend calls, you haven't talked to her, him, or them in 2 years or whatever. So this is the great segue, Tom, because how can a spiritual practice, like, to me, I think of mindfulness, because you and I are both very into mindfulness, but you could fill in the blank with that, gratitude journaling, which is part of my thing and your thing, or reading the Bible, whatever, positive affirmations.
Absolutely,
but how can, fill in the blank with what your practice is spiritually, how can that help us guide the stories we tell ourselves? So in other words, how can this spiritual practice, meaning usually daily, right, if we can do it, help us with this skill set of reframing? How does it play in?
And it's kind of interesting, too, because I think we both have spiritual practices. But the interesting thing is it doesn't have to be an extensive amount of time. It can be just 5 seconds, if that. Just to kind of be thinking about what, how your interaction with a larger universe, and what are some of the pieces in that moment that you can kind of remind yourself of why you're on this planet, right? But literally milliseconds, you can kind of remind yourself of that. But I think it's going back to knowing that this is the best for me at this moment, and I understand the situation is not what we intended it to be, but that it's going to work out the best it can be.
I like that.
Yeah.
I also liked earlier we both were kind of saying, that we're all doing our best in every way, every day in every way, right? And I kind of like, with my students, I try to encourage setting the bar. I'm thinking of like the party bar, like when you go, how low can you go?
Yeah.
Set the bar, at do your
Limbo,
best.
right?
Yeah, limbo. Set the bar at do your best, because this is one we know we can always reach, and it's all we can ask or do anyway.
Yeah.
And it can be it's adjustable, So if we set the bar there versus perfectionism, which is you don't want to drop that P word. You're better off dropping the F-bomb, I think. It's just not healthy. But when we know we're doing our best, which include with our circumstances, like if you have the flu, your best is going to be different than you know what I mean. With all things considered,
what you
and that combined with some sort of gratitude practice or mindfulness practice really has us in a much better place for our day to unfold as positively as possible. Do you think so?
Yeah. The other piece that's really important to talk about contemplative and reflective thinking and meditation on about ourselves. But boy, what is so vital is to be with others too. And
100%.
This sense of being with other people to get a real-time feedback loop about where you are and who you are. I mean, you don't need other people to tell you who you are, right? But
just that mirroring.
Mirroring, right. When you're by yourself for extensive amount of times, it creates a heck of a lot of distortion. Again, I'm never going to be good at math. I'm never going to, be able to do this, second grade. But you're going to tell those stories over and over and over in your head, and then soon enough, you're going to start to believe that, and you're going to be kind of going through life that way, right?
Because the brain loves repetition. Yeah. You can teach yourself to believe it.
Yeah, you can. Right, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then all of a sudden, you're in that mind state, and then it's basically going to bring you down in so many different ways with friends, with acquaintances, but family, right? Mm-hmm. To have this interaction and conversation that's going to give you real life feedback. Like, dude, you're a brilliant.
You're just
student.
having a bad day.
Having a bad day. You're a brilliant student. You're really, really good at so many different things. Don't be down. Like, we see you, we value you, we see you from an external point of view that you're doing great. I mean, you're an amazing friend. You're an amazing person. So to have that feedback,
your brain thinks differently.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, reframing, like, wow, other people see me as this. Maybe maybe it's true, right?
Especially if you're in a low point, don't you think that helps?
Yeah.
When you kind of don't know which end is up, and then some people who you actually value, because otherwise their opinion might not matter as much, but they know that they know you. Doesn't that kind of help you see, like, have clarity a little bit?
Yeah, when someone authentically does
right.
They really know they've been best friends.
It's like, what are you talking about? You're good at that.
Yeah. So there's a kind of almost a kind of realignment, like an immediate realignment of your reframing. It's like, and so all of us, you snap out like, yeah, I guess.
That was a really good way to put it.
And there's a way of like, I've been by myself for way too long, and it's become distorting. My
out
mind
of alignment.
is out of alignment, distorted. So, yeah, it's a great way of friends and family and your loved ones can, kind of realign you, into reality and kind of see the value that you legitimately possess.
Oh, I love that. This is excellent. So to sum up, reframe is a skill that you want in your personal ninja skill toolbox, right? And how some sort of spiritual practice is very important for that, and also to further enhance this resiliency skill, which is what it is, to be engaging with people around you. Did I? Pretty good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. You got all the points we just talked about right there.
All the points. So I'm pretty pumped now, and we're going to have Dr. Tom back with us for a part 4. So I guess what we'd like to say is thank you to all the Champlain Wave Riding listeners. And this is Dr. Kimberly Quinn and
Dr. Tom Myers
signing off from the beautiful Champlain College campus in Burlington, Vermont. Have a mindful day.